So if we just do some qualitative analysis here and just talk about, why do some of these projects take longer than expected and cost longer than expected, we have some hypotheses or reasons that we provide as to why some of the companies are having so much trouble staying within budget and within their timeline. And one is not taking into account business process improvement, change management, resource allocation, or software customization. So companies aren't accounting for these kind of non-technical, non-software vendor or non-system integrator types of activities when they put their project plans together. So what ends up happening is you get into the project, your software vendor or system integrator has given you a time frame that they think they can get the software configured and tested and up and running, but what's not included in those estimates typically are the business process reengineering, the organizational change beyond just simple software training, and also just the types of resources that would be needed and perhaps software customization as well. So those are some of the drivers for why companies are going over budget, and some of the just real high-level lessons learned that companies can incorporate into their projects to make sure that they avoid some of those challenges in their projects. There's also choosing software based on reputation or sales pitches. So a lot of companies will choose the wrong software, and I guess that's the real root cause, or one of the root causes is that companies are going over budget and taking too long because many of them are choosing the wrong software based on something other than what their company actually needs and what the software is that's right for their specific operations. So too many companies that we see trip up or stub their toes on their implementations do so because they're trying to implement a software that's not a good fit for their organizations. The third is a failure to anticipate the magnitude of the project and its impact on employees. I'd say this is a very significant problem or issue or risk that most organizations faced. They're not properly defining or understanding how big of a project this is and the type of support and resources that are needed to make the project successful. And so that's something that sets unrealistic expectations and kind of sets the bar too high in some ways for projects or for the project teams going forward. And also non-customized training based solely on the technical aspects of the system. A lot of companies make their assumption that they can just take some generic training materials provided by the software vendor or the system integrator and quickly provide some training and get the job done that way. And that certainly is an important part of training, but there's a lot more to it than just the canned training materials. The more successful companies and the more successful implementations we've worked with have involved customizing the training materials for the company's specific business processes, specific job roles and responsibilities, so that when the training happens, people understand in the context of how their jobs work and how their roles and responsibilities are supposed to function. And that's the good news, is there's a clear answer to overcome this challenge. The bad news is when you don't do this, it leads to unrealistic budgetary expectations or timeline expectations as well. And then the fifth reason for some of these budgetary and timeline overages is a lack of concerted communication to end users. So most companies and project teams are pretty good, especially early on in a project, at communicating the status of the project and where things are at and when people are going to get trained, and just communicating the real basic milestones and project status. But what companies aren't as good at doing in general are communicating to end users and employees what's changing, how their jobs are going to change, why we're going through the change, what it means to them, what it means to the company, and how it's going to make the operations more efficient and effective overall going forward. So that type of communication to end users is critical and something that too many companies overlook in their ERP initiatives.